Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Taste of Transformation podcast. If you like what you hear, please share with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all podcast platforms at Taste of Transformation for more episodes like this. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or know of someone who would be a good guest, please reach out to us at tasteoftransformation@gmail.com. Enjoy this episode. Hi, I'm Charles Lewis, and welcome to Taste of Transformation. Our podcast interviews individuals who have been impacted by the criminal legal system, but are now living successful lives. They will share their stories of transformation, challenges, and their triumphs, and give us the tools that they have used in their lives to overcome those challenges and triumphs. My guest today is John Valverde. Did I pronounce it correctly? Valverde?
Yes, that's fine. Unless you're really good at rolling the R's, you can say Valverde.
Valverde. That sounds Italian.
Fine.
Valverde?
Actually, I'm from Costa Rica.
From Costa Rica.
Some Spanish root.
So I'm horrible at rolling the R's. So please say your name again so that the audience has the correct.
Valverde is fine.
John Valverde. So I'm going to read. I have to read your resume in the sense so that people can fully understand like who you are and get a sense of what you've done. So John is the president and CEO of Youth Build USA, and we'll be speaking more about that today. He joined Youth Build in 2017 after decades of working as an advantage for creating access to opportunity and removing barriers for formerly incarcerated and marginalized people. You began working with imprisoned individuals in 1992, ensuring that access to HIV and AIDS, counseling, high school equivalency instruction, alternative surveillance programs, and college education. And in 1998, John co-founded Hudson Link for Higher Education, which was the first privately funded accredited college program in New York's prisons. And as a leader of lived experience who was incarcerated at the age of 21, John is a true reflection of the importance of the healing and equity of second chances and examples for the young people of Youth Build who are seeking their own second chances. John is a Marano Fellow of the Aspen Institute Sector Skills Academy, a Pahara Aspen Education Fellow, co-chair of the National Service, Civic Engagement and Volunteering Pillar of More Perfect, the Partnership for American Democracy, a member of the New York State Council on Community Reentry and Reintegration, and an elected member of the Council on Criminal Justice. And John has won numerous awards, including being named a 2022 Power 50 Movement Maker by the Boston Business Journal. He holds a Master of Professional Studies in Herbal Ministry from the New York Theological Seminary and a bachelor's degree in Behavioral Science from Mercy College. It's a lot. That is a lot. Before we dive into your story, before we dive into what you're doing now, I asked John, I sent an email and asked him what was his favorite meal. We normally have meals. We had these interviews over meals. And John said he would give me a break. I could just bring him some parfaits. And I really appreciated it very much so because, boy, cooking Jack Mac. I've been cooking a lot of Jack Mac for this show. So cooking Jack Mac, it gives me a break from cooking Jack Mac. So we have parfaits. I got two different ones. I got one from Stop and Shop. I got one from Starbucks. And I was just like, I want to see which one is like better. Like the one in Starbucks costs like 3 times more than the one in Stop and Shop, right? But is it really that different? So you can have a taste of your parfait.
Sure.
Pretty sure it's delicious. I'll taste mine. And we'll dive straight into the interview. So thank you for being here. I know you're a very busy man. And so coming here means a lot. You're helping us live out our dreams.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's actually pretty good. Let's start with your story. So you were incarcerated for 16 years.
That's right.
And you were incarcerated for?
I was convicted of manslaughter in the second degree and criminal possession of a weapon. And it stemmed from me taking the law into my own hands and taking the life of the man who had raped my girlfriend at the time.
So prior to you committing that crime, what was your life like? Were you like a law-abiding citizen? Were you into crime? Or was this like your first major crime?
This was my first offense, my first crime. I did not live a life of crime. I was actually in college and had graduated from high school, had received a full scholarship to go to college. I wanted to be a doctor, the doctor that runs out onto the field when a player gets hurt and then perform the surgery to ensure that this athlete could return to their professional lives and contribute to their teams. That was my goal. And when I was 21 years old, I made a terrible decision that resulted in my incarceration for 16 years.
Okay, so lawlessness did not characterize your life.
No.
But you found yourself serving 16 years behind bars. How did you deal with that?
Well, I would say lawlessness doesn't equal fantastic, incredible, fulfilling life without barriers, without challenges. I was raised by a single mom struggling to make ends meet. The first in my family born in this country. My family's from Costa Rica, so first generation American. The first in my family to go to college. We struggled. We depended on the kindness of family and friends for places to live and to have the support that we needed. And fortunately, we did have that. Many of my mom's family had arrived here in the United States and were a support for us. Without them, I'm not sure what our lives would have been like. But it was never easy. It was always hard fought. It always took commitment. My mom is one of my heroes. I still find it hard to comprehend how she made ends meet and kept my brother and I in school and kept us moving forward and kept a home for us, a place to live. It really is a miracle to me. So I'm grateful for the life that I had with all its struggles and the efforts that my mom made to sacrifice for us. And that doesn't equal not going to prison either.
Right. So you started from humble beginnings. You get a full scholarship. You commit this crime. What was that? How did that affect your mother? Like, because I imagine like she was heartbroken. Like, here it is. Her son has the road paved for him to like be a doctor, be successful. You worked really hard to get a full scholarship. That doesn't come easy. What was that like for your mother, for your family, knowing that they, and for you, like knowing that they did so much so that you can have that opportunity, and now that opportunity was gone?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to still have my mom with me. She visited me every other week for 16 years of my incarceration. And I have to say that I haven't had that many conversations with her about how she felt about all of this. And it's a pretty generic story, I'm sure, for any immigrant family, especially from that generation. It wasn't something you talk about.
Okay.
And my mom is still very private about even me having been in prison, although it's very public and I speak openly about it, publicly about it. My mom still doesn't talk about that part of my life and that time in her own life. But devastated would probably be a good word to summarize what she felt. Very few people come from Costa Rica to the United States to try and make a new life here. People usually stay in Costa Rica. And so to come here and fail is a real thing, is a real thing for my mom, for anyone from her generation coming here. And so I'm sure she would have viewed my crime, of course, as failure. And failure both on her part, but also my father's part. And having to live with that would have been incredibly difficult for her, as I'm sure it was. And we have talked a little bit about it, but not as much as one would think.
Yeah.
And we're very private. She remains very, very private. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm very public about it.
Yeah, as kind of similar situation with my mom. And now that you're saying this, I'm like, wait a minute. It's kind of like the same with my mom. She doesn't really like talk about it with me, but I'm like, everybody knows, like everyone knows. So, do you mind sharing like what led up to like that day, like with your girlfriend and you taking the man's life? What led up to that day?
It's a great question, and I can answer it in several different ways. And I think I'll just go with how I'm feeling today about it. I mean, I was strong intellectually. I was good in school. I loved school. I was a great athlete. I played soccer growing up. I was the captain of every team that I was on. I also played basketball, even though I'm really short, and played baseball. And I was very popular in school. I won the most popular in school, in high school, and I was an honor roll student. But intellectual ability, maybe physical and athletic ability, isn't enough. And why do I believe in like whole child education and whole child supports? It's because you can support the physical, the mental, but if you don't develop the emotional side and the additional durable skills, I call them differently than soft skills from a recent report I read, you're missing something. And your wheel of life, there's spokes in it that are just not working. And so your wheel doesn't turn very smoothly. So I share that to say doing well in school, being popular, being an athlete wasn't enough for me. I was not emotionally mature. I didn't grow up with my father right there around me. So I felt that loss in that void in my life, I'm sure. And so I wasn't developed emotionally to the level of being able to handle a situation like what happened. And so my girlfriend was raped in New York City. And when I discovered what had happened to her, in my anger and anguish over that, I went and confronted the man who raped her, and I took his life. And to say like I planned and thought about it carefully, and that's a overstatement.
Okay.
It was really, and not quite autopilot. I was angry enough to go confront this man. I had also been through things in my life, so I wasn't afraid to go confront someone either. I was a tough kid. I was an angry kid. I would even say, and I haven't said this publicly very much, I would be unrecognizable to some people if you met me only 20 years ago or 30 years ago. As a young man, being poor, struggling, seeing your mom struggling, I had a lot of reason to be angry. My father wasn't in my life, and we didn't have resources. And, I had a lot of trauma growing up as a kid that was unresolved. Plain and simple. That's who I was the day I learned that my girlfriend had been raped. And I felt like a failure as a man in my culture also. And I was raised to take care of my mom and respect women. That's how I grew up. I felt that it was my responsibility to do something about this. But I lacked the emotional maturity and the supports, the people around me to help me regulate and navigate a situation like this. And I made terrible decisions that spiraled downward and resulted in me killing someone.
Mm-hmm.
And while I recognize who I was the day I killed someone, today it's still hard to believe that I was capable of doing that. But I understand now who I was.
Mm.
And I think my incarceration, and I know we'll talk a little bit about change and transformation, of course, but so much of it involved ensuring in the ways that I could never be the person I was the day I committed my crime. That I was going to do everything that I could to grow and develop myself to ensure that I could never, ever harm anyone ever again.
So you spoke about like the anger that you had, and I guess we can. That would be a good time to like speak about the transformation. Some people would say that your crime was justified because if I read correctly, the gentleman who raped your girlfriend, he was a registered like sex offender. Mm-hmm. So given the circumstances, some people say like your crime was justified. You should have gotten a lighter sentence. What's your answer to that, or what's your response to those people who think that?
You know, I'm sure we're going to cover this too, but back then, you're 21 years old. You think I thought I did the right thing. I thought I was just defending the honor of my girlfriend, someone I love, and that it was what I was raised to do, and that I needed to protect her. And so I would have justified what I did back then. And it did take me a little time. I was incarcerated probably a year before the first aha moment, experiencing and realizing that what I had done was wrong. But it took me many years after that to say what I did was wrong, period, full stop. I would say what I did was wrong, but this man had done something to someone I cared a lot about, and I was young and I was immature. You know, I had all these reasons that ultimately are excuses to try to justify and rationalize the terrible decision I made. But over time, and this comes with time, and comes with maturity, and comes with learning, development, and growth, I was able to finally own with full 100% responsibility the choice that I made and the consequences of the choice and the choices that I made. And that meant owning the fact that I had killed someone, period.
Right.
And I think that's when I was actually ready to come home.
So it took you said about a year for you to get to that, or years to get to that point.
Years, for sure, years.
Was there do you remember if there was like a particular moment, or if like, was it something that someone said? Was it something that you read that made it click in your mind? Like, wait a minute, like I was wrong. Like there's no excuse for what I did. Do you remember that moment when it clicked?
You know, I've believed for a long time that one conversation can change a person's life. And I jokingly say, and I have so many of those one conversations that have changed my life. Mm-hmm. So I can't narrow it down to one thing or one experience or conversation or one book that I read that awakened me to the reality and the full ownership of responsibility for my crime. But definitely there were experiences that I can remember that contributed to my development and growth, my understanding, the remorse that I eventually fully developed, and the commitment to making amends that I still live by in a very different way than I did during my incarceration. I think I live to make a difference in the world now, not so much out of a debilitating guilt or shame for who I was and what I did, but more out of a commitment to being who I was always meant to be. But it does further my commitment to making amends for the life that I took. And to me, that's a big deal. But early on, I reconnected with my father, and he said to me, accept full responsibility for your crime, seek to make amends, and say yes as much as you can to help others, and you will find purpose and meaning and be free. Had no idea what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But he was my father. I wanted a relationship with him. I wanted to rebuild my relationship with him. And I took it to heart. And I started saying yes as much as I could to help others. And early on after that, so that's one conversation that changed my life. There's a main one that changed my life. Another one was being in an alternative to violence program. As you know, we were all required, especially those of us with a crime considered a violent offense. We were required to do this programming. And it was there that I heard people sharing their stories that shaped who they were the day they committed their crimes, almost the question you asked earlier. And in hearing people describe that, because I was struggling with, I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. Didn't live a life of crime. I'm educated. I don't belong here. And I certainly don't belong in a maximum security prison. Mm-hmm. And that young man, I don't know his name. I can't even fully picture him. But what he shared was the first moment I said to myself, I belong here. Mm. I'm not different. You take me out of my circumstances and swap someone else in, and vice versa.
Do you remember what he said?
He's just shared his upbringing, raised by a single mother, struggling, choices that were made. And I realized that I was him, he was me. And I looked around the room and everyone was different to me. And that was the beginning of my incarceration. And my incarceration in this specific sense, my journey to redemption, my transformation journey. Interestingly enough, I don't think began with my father's words. It was my father's words and this young man, and connecting the two that helped me understand that I was here for a purpose. And the purpose wasn't just my punishment, which I do believe I merited. I believe that I should be incarcerated, that I should be held to account for taking someone's life.
In that moment, you had started to believe that.
I believed that I belonged in prison. Okay. I accepted a responsibility for what I did.
Okay.
I just always had but I wouldn't have done it had this person not done what he did first. And so for me, that the distinction was really beginning to own that whatever time that I needed to be in prison, there was no question about should I be in prison. I needed to be in prison. But I was questioning about how long I would need to be there.
Okay. That's interesting. Because like I feel like there are some guys who, I don't even feel like I know, like there are some people who would say like, nah, he took care of his girlfriend. He did what he was supposed to have done. So you felt like you understood that you belonged there because you committed a crime. It was just the length of time. You felt like your time should have been shorter. So how much time did you think you should have gotten? Like,
it's
initially.
It's not something I think about that much anymore, but I My case was highly publicized in New York City. Had a public trial. I did go to trial. So I was acquitted of murder.
Okay.
So this year I'm home 16 years on Earth Day. I was released on Earth Day, April 22nd. So every April 22nd is my
that's dope.
My welcome home day. So this year is 16 years. It's likely I would still be in prison had I been convicted of murder. So I was acquitted of murder, convicted of manslaughter, sentenced to 10 to 30 years. So I'll say, how much time did I deserve? Or, how much, I'll say it differently. How much time was enough for me to own full responsibility for my crime and commit to making amends? I would say I was in 5 years, and past the age of 25 or so, further incarceration was, not going to serve any purpose for me other than, the accountability and punishment side of serving a set or long period of time based on the seriousness of the offense, et cetera, all of that. But for me personally, after 5 years in prison,
you got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
I was never going to come back to prison. I was never going to hurt anybody. I was going to live my life committed to making a difference. And I served 11 years more after that.
And so you said that that's a long time. You said that you discovered your purpose while you were incarcerated. What was that purpose?
It's a great question. And at this age, in my mid-50s, I really, really understand that I have not had only one purpose in my life. And I now look for what my purpose is.
Okay.
And today I have a purpose. I maybe can't articulate it perfectly, but I trust that I'm supposed to be here and that everything's happening exactly as it needs to for the highest good. And I said yes to this opportunity because everything inside me and what I've lived and my experience told me to say yes to this. That's how I live my life. And early on in my incarceration, I think I thought my purpose was say yes as much as you can to help others, and you'll find purpose and meaning and be free.
Okay.
But when I was younger and earlier in my life and early in my incarceration, everything was about proving to myself and probably everyone, including my mom, my dad, people who cared about me and supported me when I was growing up, my coaches, all of that, proving to them that I wasn't my crime, that I was more than that, that I could be the person that they believed in, even though I couldn't see it for myself and I couldn't fully believe in myself. They believed in me. They saw something in me. I lived my incarceration early on to prove them right. And that's what motivated me. And it's very interesting to define that as purpose, because I don't know that I would define that as purpose.
Right.
But I was motivated to be better. And as a result of becoming better, learning, development, and the growth that comes from applying what you're learning, and I had the opportunity to apply that during my incarceration, being educated and being able to create programs and teach classes, etc. I think that's how I started to discover that my purpose at the time was to teach or to facilitate. But it came out of a desire to prove that I was enough, that I was more than my crime, that I was what my mom and others who cared about me believed I could be. And so, I'm always, curious about questions that ask, like, what would you tell, like, your younger self? There are things today that are so clear to me, so clear to me, that the younger John couldn't hear.
But if you could see, like if you could see John, right, with the gun, right before he got there, right, even though you might think like, all right, John's not going to listen, but I need to tell him this. What would you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great point. Using a specific example like that, that's easier for me to respond to. When I think about that moment, it's, for me, speak to somebody. Mm-hmm. I didn't speak with anyone. Mm-hmm. And I was raised to be private, not to share what you're going through. I had people I could have turned to. I had teachers who cared about me, coaches who cared about me, family members who cared about me. And I didn't turn to any of them. Mm-hmm. So that one's easier for me. Mm-hmm. John, turn to someone. You don't have to go this route. There are other options. I know you can't see them right now, but there are other options. Talk to this person. Talk to that person. I would have probably said, talk to your father. Mm-hmm. Talk to your brother.
Do you think you heard that right? Like in the. So how many days after your girlfriend told you that she was raped? Like how soon after did you?
Oh no, it was a period of time afterwards. It was months.
It was months later. Okay.
It was months later, and I went to the police on several occasions.
Okay.
At least 3. I think it might have been 4 times.
Okay.
And I went like this. I didn't like disguise myself going to the police or anything. And I shared what had happened to my girlfriend. And it's actually through them that I learned that this man had other offenses.
Yeah.
And that my girlfriend at the time, her complaint could be the one that results in his incarceration because he was on probation. And so it's actually through them that I learned about his background. But it was only after, I mean, this is all in trial. I went through court through all of this. It was him calling my then girlfriend as if nothing had happened. And that was his pattern. That's how he was trained as a psychotherapist. He knew how to select his victims, and he knew how to manipulate them afterwards. And we all know from research and experience that so many women blame themselves when things like this, horrible things like this happen. And so she was no different. And so it was only then that she felt threatened that I felt,
okay,
all right, I've tried the police route.
Okay.
I need to do something.
Okay.
And again, I said it earlier, I was angry enough to hurt him.
Yeah.
No question about it. It was there. Did I visualize killing someone? No. No, I just didn't. Did I feel I needed to confront this man for my own manhood, maybe? Yes, I felt that. And at 21, that's not the healthiest view of the world and why you should do things. Mm-hmm. And I'm clear on that today. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, my girlfriend never asked me to confront anyone. In fact, she wanted to just move on with her life. I'm the one who couldn't let it go. And so that's another reason I feel that my incarceration was warranted and the punishment was warranted. I made the choice. Right. And I own that choice and the consequences of that choice.
Because I had asked that question because So I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking about when I committed my crime. I was also locked up for attempted murder. But there was a moment when I was hearing like like future Charles say, like, don't do this. Don't do this. You don't need to do this. Go talk to someone. And I just didn't listen. And so I was wondering if you had those thoughts, if you remembered having those thoughts. But like now hearing like even more details, it's like I can see how going that route was like a little bit like easier. You talk a lot about purpose. We spoke a little bit about purpose. Let's explore the significance of having a clear sense of purpose and how it can positively influence your daily routine. You live your life, seems like you live your life based off intention, like you're intentional about what you do. Mm-hmm. While you were incarcerated, you created a lot of programs. What was your intention behind creating those programs? Like, why did you create those programs?
Yeah, I'll touch a little bit on purpose, and then I'll speak more to the motivation and intent behind being involved in different programs. I think it's important for all of us to have a broad vision of what our purpose is in life. Like, our purpose is to serve others. Our purpose is to help others. And then there are going to be more specific purposes or sense of purpose that drives us in different situations throughout our lives. So I think the broad purpose of contributing to people's lives is true for me. It wasn't fully true for me in prison. Even though I was developing programs and I was advancing myself and my goals, it truly was what I mentioned earlier, really trying to prove to myself that I wasn't the horrible person that killed someone, and prove to others that I was more than that. And so I completed my college in prison, not just because it was an opportunity there that I could take advantage of because I had sufficient education to actually be successful in engaging in that. It was to achieve something that would help my fractured, broken sense of self and identity and ego rebuild. And truly, that's what it was. Each accomplishment, like, healed or fixed, maybe not heal, maybe heal's too strong a word in the beginning, but took my fractured self and helped me start putting myself back together. And once I had achieved enough of those things, I was strong enough, I had a strong enough foundation to now want to try to provide that for others. And that was the motivation behind my creation of programs. But creation of programs isn't just Hudson Link. I co-founded Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. I'm very proud of that. I helped co-found or co-relaunch in many ways Rising Hope, which is, I believe, still operating in some way today. I think the creation of programs was actually me figuring out how to support an individual, one of my peers who was incarcerated with me, struggling with the dyslexia, learn how to read. Those are the programs that I'm most proud of, that I was able to actually help people learn to read.
Yeah.
Learn to feel what it was like to know for them that they could do this, because no one had ever shown them that they could.
Right.
No one had given them that level of attention and support for them to realize they had gifts and talents and intellect in equal measure to anyone.
Yeah.
But just didn't have the opportunities and supports and the people who believed in them. Those are the programs that I probably will never get credit for, that I believe I'm most proud of, and the ones that I feel I truly created.
Yeah. And probably made the biggest impact. Because I don't know, people would be surprised as to how many people cannot read in prison.
Yes.
I was shocked when I got there, and I found out there were men who were 60, 65 who could not read. And then when you show them how to read, even a simple word, you see their face light up. Like that self-worth came back to them in that moment. And so you were talking about how you started doing what you did to help to heal or to fix. What the word that came to mind was self-esteem, to help with your self-esteem. And then out of that, you've helped and assisted others to build their self-esteem.
Yeah, and all of us have heard the put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others. I didn't even do it for that reason. I really felt it wasn't let me build myself up. It was the only thing that I could do.
Mm.
And you make an important point, and I want to really highlight this distinction. I went in educated.
Mm.
So when my father says, say yes as much as you can to help others, my father understood I could read, write, was great in school. I was an athlete. I was a leader from a young child. I was captain of every team I was on from a young age. He knew that I could contribute. I just didn't think that that was my purpose or even what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a successful doctor. I was going to work with professional athletes. And, that was my path. This was a very, very different path for me. And what I hope comes across as maybe, a key purpose or a key learning in my life, and I would think this is true for most people, but they maybe don't fully articulate it in the same way that I would, but life is a journey of humility. And God gives us gifts, and we use them, and we grow ourselves, but without the humility to share them with others and continue to learn and continue to grow, I don't know that we have a purpose. We have a list of boxes to check. And we accomplish things, and we add them to our resume, and we celebrate them, we frame them and put them on our wall. But I think purpose is very, very different than that. I believe purpose for me has been now. In the beginning, it was definitely all of that. I needed to work on my own ego, prove to myself that I was worthy in whatever way to the world and to my family. What's different for me now, the change that I've experienced, the transformation even that I've experienced around that is I'm an avid reader, a committed learner, and it's all for the purpose of me becoming more of who I was always meant to be, exploring more of my full potential so that I have more to give back to others. That wasn't why I pursued things early on in my life or in my incarceration. That wasn't fully why I created programs. It was what I needed to survive. And out of that survival, I was blessed to gain knowledge and have the strength to apply that knowledge. Because I fully believe that knowledge is not power.
Yeah.
Knowledge applied is power.
Knowledge is potential.
And I had the ability the courage even to apply everything I was learning in an environment that really desperately needed people that could contribute to the lives of others in this way. And so that's what became my purpose while I was inside. And now I live variations of that purpose today.
I'm glad you said that. So I've been having conversations with people these past week, and we've been talking about purpose. And one of the things that I've been saying is, I think we all have the same purpose. We just go about achieving that purpose in different ways. And I think the purpose in life is about helping others and giving to others. I think that's what man, woman, that's what we were created for. We are here to do, to help, to assist. And just reading your resume, I was going on the internet looking up like the programs that you started, programs that you're involved in now, like Youth Build. Your life seems to be dedicated to giving back and helping others achieve their goals. By doing that, like what's the satisfaction that you get from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I continue to be motivated to be the possibility of freedom and making a difference in the world by standing with people and supporting them and living their full potential. If I had a purpose statement for me that's guided my life over the last almost 16 years that I'm home, and probably 10 years before that during my incarceration, it would be that. And that crystallized for me, over the years, even while I was inside. And I realized that I had a gift, that I was a natural teacher, that I had the discipline and work ethic those are tricky words for me. I had really good habits.
Mm-hmm.
I had really good habits that I developed through discipline and work ethic, right? But that became habits. And my ability to share these habits in support of people learning to read, learning to grow. I was even a personal trainer on the inside for many years.
Yeah.
And my commitment to my learning and growth, I mean, that you put it all together, and it is, and it has, and it continues to be about standing and supporting people and achieving their full potential. That's who I am.
Yeah.
That's what I embody. That's what I'm committed to. And so I was 47 when I started at Youth Build USA, and I received an email from a recruiter inviting me to apply for this opportunity, and this is in 2016. And I immediately thought of a dozen people who would be great for this job, and I was already executive vice president at the Osborne Association. And I didn't think it was for me. It wasn't in criminal justice. It wasn't working with populations that I had historically worked with. It wasn't in higher education, which I had worked with through Hudson Link and Rising Hope, et cetera. And that was a Friday. On the Monday following, more than a dozen people contacted me and said, "Did you hear about this opportunity? You would be perfect for this." And so out of my commitment to learning, growth, development, I said, well, they'll never select me because I wouldn't be a good role model for young people. And this is youth development work. It's not criminal justice. It's a global organization. I've never been a CEO before. So I did it more because I had developed the courageous muscle of going for things for the learning that I would experience from it.
Okay.
And that's why I applied for this opportunity. And I went on 7 interviews over 4 months in 4 different cities with 32 different people. My 7th interview was 3.5 hours long and was all about my business acumen and how I would engage in a potential restructuring of the organization. And it was an incredible experience for me. And by the 7th interview, I did think I had a chance to be selected.
That's a long process.
It was a long process. And, things like this that we don't think about, but my board of directors, they were concerned that because of my criminal background, that major philanthropy, donors, funders would be hesitant to make grants and donations to Youth Build USA. And they required I provide references, including a request to have my parole officer be a reference for me. And I had to explain, I haven't been on parole for a long time. I don't have a relationship with a parole officer anymore for many years. I'm not on parole anymore. But I'm so grateful to Brian Fisher, the former commissioner of all of docs and corrections. I offered to the board of directors, I said, well, would a reference from the commissioner of the entire prison system in New York be good enough? And they were like, sure, that'd be great. And so, Brian was really, really wonderful about being a reference for me. But things like this that you don't think about, these relationships that you build, even during your incarceration, that you think may never serve you, they all serve you. All of them. Yeah. And so when I was appointed president and CEO of Youth Build USA, I'm in my 8th year now. At the time, I was told, I hope this isn't true anymore, that I was the first formerly incarcerated CEO of a nonprofit with a global mission, and especially one that is not specifically related to criminal justice. Right. And, as humbling as that is, I truly, truly believe it means nothing. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it means a little bit. But if it doesn't inspire the young people of Youth Build, maybe all people, to believe that no one should be defined only by the worst thing they've ever done, but by who they are today and who they can be in the future. And if it doesn't inspire society to believe in the importance of second chances and really even true, real first chances for people. And that's what I hope my story contributes to, what my life contributes to. But it's interesting to say, as I noted, I was 47 when I started at Youth Build USA. And it was almost like when I first started in prison, I need to prove to everyone that I can do this.
Okay.
I can't fail. I've got to work harder than everyone. I've got to show others that I deserve this opportunity. And this is the distinction of change, maturity, transformation. And now I felt not the responsibility for myself in the way I did when I was first starting out my learning journey. Now it was, I need to prove, yes, to others that I can do this. I was given an opportunity. The board of directors took a risk on me for sure. I need to prove to them. But now it was, I need to open more doors for formerly incarcerated people and people who I left behind on the inside. I need to show the world that good can come out of prison and that we can be leaders and that we can make a difference and we can support global missions and global movements. And my ambition from 47 to now almost 55, I'm no longer motivated to prove that I am a good CEO.
Yeah,
or that I can be an effective leader.
It's
today. It's all about the young people.
So yeah. So when I was researching you, I was like, and I saw that you're the CEO of Youth Build. I was like, wait a minute, like this is a huge like shift. And now that I got your story on, we've gotten your story on like, okay, how that came about. Let's talk more about Youth Build. So these youth, were they involved in the criminal legal system in any way, or is this just like a talk about Youth Build? What is it? What is it?
Yeah, so Youth Build, we were founded in 1978 when our founder in East Harlem in New York City asked young people, if you had adult support, what would you do to transform your community? And as you might know, historically in the 70s in East Harlem, there were abandoned buildings everywhere. And the young people saw an opportunity to rehabilitate those buildings and create affordable housing for their community. So I like to say, youth build affordable housing.
Okay.
Is those are our origins, right? That's our origin story, and from there,
I think that's incredible that the youth are thinking about things like that.
It's a very important note, and I'm glad that you captured that. So what's key to note there is we, from our founding, centered young people, centered their power and potential to transform their own lives and the lives of their communities, and today, as a global organization, the world. And Youth Build supports 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in school and not working, what used to be called disconnected youth. I hate all these labels. I'm sure you do too, but we need to use them to describe the young people we stand with here. But these young people have left school or been pushed out of school because of the circumstances they live in. And as we both know, our communities and poverty, there are elements that result in additional crime, lower health outcomes, unstable housing, food insecurity, opioid overdose and substance misuse, you name it. I mean,
it all contributes to...
All of it contributes. And Youth Build only exists in those communities.
Okay.
So Youth Build is, again, its foundings around affordable housing. So it's focused on communities that are, another label, economically disadvantaged. But the assets that the young people are, and seeing their value, and people like us believing in them, and then giving them the opportunity through a program like Youth Build to develop the skill sets and mindsets to make a difference in the world. That's what Youth Build is all about. So we re-engage young people who are not in school and not working, and we run essentially the alternative school to the alternative school.
Okay.
And young people can complete their high school credential, so their diploma or the equivalent with us, advanced career training in multiple career tracks, one of them, of course, being construction, right? Youth Build affordable housing. But we're also in healthcare, IT, management and logistics, hospitality, and other industries. They do leadership development. That's a critical element of Youth Build. It's not just workforce training and complete your high school credential. No, we're calling on you to be the leaders that you were always meant to be and give back to your community in some way. And so we have one of the largest national service grants through AmeriCorps, and one of the few grants that support Opportunity Youth. Opportunity Youth are young people aged 16 to 24 who are out of school and not working. Most of those grants support young people from maybe better-to-do families that are taking a gap year to do service. Our young people are doing it because it's the first time in their lives that they are strong enough and have enough of a foundation to give back to others. And through Youth Build and their leadership development are saying, all my life and for generations, my family has been the recipient of public assistance and supports. Today, I can be a provider of supports and services to my community. And that's something that's created through the Youth Build experience for these young people.
So exactly how, so the youth, are they actively like helping to hands-on build, like rebuild the buildings. Like, for example, so they're going inside and they're doing the construction and the electrical work and things like that.
That's absolutely right.
And so Youth Build teaches them, and then they go and then they apply those skills into their communities, and they're literally building their communities.
All the Youth Build
Oh,
programs must have a project that they're working on. So we have Youth Build programs that actually build homes from the ground up, and they donate the home to a first-time home owner. And so we have programs like that across the country.
Like donate, like the homeowner gets it
like
free.
Yes. I mean, through other programs, we partner with Habitat, for example, and other things like that. But yeah, it's incredible.
So the youth are literally building their communities. From their because of their background being kind of hard, what are the changes that you're seeing that's taking place, whether it's like their self-esteem, their education? Like, talk about the change that's happened with the youth, how it's affecting them, and then how the change that's affecting them, how it's affecting you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm smiling and maybe laughing a little bit to myself because when I first started, I would visit local youth build programs. We have over 275 youth build programs around the world. And I would started to visit some of them here in the United States. And I would meet these incredible young people. And I started to wonder, are they like putting forth like their superstar, perfect student every time? And then obviously over the years, I realized that no, this is a thing in youth build. Like people, young people come to the program after having left school and not graduating and struggling. And they land in youth build, and very quickly something special happens. And what I want to share about that, and in answer to your question, youth build operates at the nexus of three spheres: positive youth development, workforce and career pathways, and education programming. And we're one of the only global networks that operate at that nexus. We're one of the only global networks that operate in urban, suburban, rural, tribal communities. So we're very, very diverse in that sense. And it doesn't matter whether it's in a city or in a rural area, or gender or race. It's incredible what happens at a youth build program for the reason we like to describe as youth build love. And by that, we mean that we've created environments around the world that see young people for their power and potential, are committed to a sense of connection, belonging, agency for young people. The number of young people who've told me before I came to Youth Build, no one had ever told me that I could achieve X, Y, Z, or whatever it was. No one had ever told me, I believe in you. The only future I saw for myself was incarceration or death and a life of struggle until that day. And Youth Build, through this love, and I mean it. I mean, it's maybe some people feel love is mushy, but when you care about someone and they feel it, they believe it, they start to trust you. If they start to trust you, they start to talk to you. If they talk to you, they start sharing and releasing the traumas and the harm that they've experienced in their lives. And they start shaping and developing a new identity, a new sense of self that isn't dragged down by all of that trauma. They actually start to heal. You can lay on the strongest career pathway programming, the strongest educational and leadership development and service programming on top of a foundation and be okay. But on a foundation of love, with all the elements that I've just described, a young person can fly. And so what's been amazing to me is a young person who struggled in the public education system, eventually got suspended or left or just couldn't pass the grades. Within 3 to 6 months, they have their high school diploma. How is that possible?
Right.
Unless Youth Build is this effective, comprehensive program that offers all these elements, but in a culture and climate rooted in love and belief in the power and potential of this young person, really centering their voices, which is our founding, their leadership, and creating a learner-centered ecosystem for them where they're co-designing what they want to learn and make meaning of the lives and the purpose that they want to live. That's what Youth Build is all about. That's why we'll be celebrating our 50th year in 2028. So my goal is to help get us there in a strong way. But it's really wonderful and exciting because young people, they're not just the future. Young people are the present. And there's more young people than ever in history between the ages that Youth Build supports at a critical time in their development. We're grateful to be their partners in supporting them achieving their full power and potential.
I'm loving the story. It sounds like, so with Youth Build, supplying the love that these youth, probably most of them are not getting in outside of Youth Build or before Youth Build. It sounds like the staff that you're hiring are special because in order for that youth to get that love, it has to come from a person. It has to come from the staff. So talk about the staffing process. Talk about the staff, because it sounds like you all have an amazing staff to be able to give that love that the youth needs, because I know it's not easy.
I mean, it's always great to speak with another leader of lived experience. You get how important that is, and I don't need to explain it as much to you, and I'm not surprised by your question because it says a lot about who you are and what you've been through and your recognition of the shoulders that you stand on yourself to be where you are today. And I do want to make a distinction. Youth Build USA is the global support center for all these programs, but the real work, the work on the front lines, happens at these local Youth Build programs. So our staff at Youth Build USA are amazing. I love them. They're committed. They want to do everything to support these local programs. And we see the local programs and the staff at these local programs as the heroes, along with the young people, because it's co-creation that they're doing at the local level. But you would not be surprised to know that most of the staff at a Youth Build program are people of lived experience, people who've been through what the young people have been through, people who understand the importance of love, and they also need the training in positive youth development and the pedagogy of agency and science of belonging in order to be able to support the young people. Because it can't just be they're getting that from their high school instructor and then not from their construction or career pathway instructor. Everyone at the program, the staff as a whole, creates the culture and climate that is the opportunity for young people to become the best version of themselves with their support. And believe me, you know this too, the young people can see if the staff are together or not.
Yes. And if they're genuine.
That's it. So when they feel, wow, this is a place where people care about each other and I can see it and I can feel it, they start to say, this is a place where I can learn and grow and accomplish things and envision a future for myself that I never imagined was possible.
Yeah, and they can feel comfortable, comfortable enough to let their guards down, to become vulnerable.
That's right. And I did want to touch on one point before I forget. while I did not know that the young people of Youth Build would have had justice involvement or involvement with the criminal legal system, because of everything that we've talked about and just the nature of the communities that have been underinvested in, these communities have so many barriers to a young person's success. And that's why Youth Build is needed to complete their education, to pursue employment, but also the substance misuse supports, the mentoring, the financial capability training, the opioid overdose training, all these elements, because the young people inevitably have been involved in human trafficking, have been involved in the experience of being unhoused, have been involved in substance misuse, and have been involved in the system. So what I didn't know when I started, 1/3 of the young people of Youth Build self-report having been involved with the justice system, which means it could be as high as 50%.
Right.
So when I thought I wouldn't be a good fit for this organization,
I was thinking about that. Yeah, perfect.
because I couldn't be a role model for the young people. It's really been an incredible experience to understand that I am a role model for them, and they can be what they can see, right? That great quote by Marion Wright Edelman. And it's I'm proud that I can be that example for them. And it's it's been a big part of my journey and my own second chance story. So I didn't graduate from Youth Build, but while I was incarcerated, I advanced my education. I got career pathway training, leadership development, opportunities to serve on the inside in different ways. I just described Youth Build. And so I didn't graduate from Youth Build, but I understand why Youth Build works, just as you understand how important it is to have caring adults around you who believe in you and maybe have been through what you've been through as a credible messenger on some level.
Right. And then, and then even if, like just having that, like I learned from my experience, the times when I've grown as a person, it was because of the support system that I had, the people there who gently, softly loved me through the process, even when I wasn't as lovable as I should have been. That support is needed, and more so for the youth, because I love the statement that you made. You said they're not just the future, but they're also the present. My thought process with the youth is, they are like the future. Like what we put into them now, they will put into the world. Once we're dead, the baton is on. It's on them, and so how we treat them, it really matters. And it sounds like Youth Build understands that. It sounds like they understand that.
Absolutely. And I want to connect it back to purpose. We've been talking a lot about purpose, and I've reached a point in my life and my career where the days I have left in my career are shorter than what I've already contributed to my time in my career. And I know that I won't realize the end of poverty in my career, let alone my lifetime. And many of the other social challenges that we're faced with, I understand that and I accept that. But my purpose isn't defined by an attachment to a particular picture of success anymore, as it used to be. I think really for me now, it's even holding the line to give young people the chance for their leadership to contribute in the ways that it can. Us holding the line to give them that opportunity is such a meaningful purpose to have. And, I do believe that our purpose changes during our lives, and we shift from the need to feed our egos and prove ourselves and look good and avoid looking bad, to actually having our purpose be contribution. And I've reached that point in my life where I want to do all I can to contribute to the leadership of others, understanding that I'll keep holding the line, I'll keep carrying my water and doing what I can, and none of us can do it alone.
Yeah.
And if we're not developing the present leadership that we need for the future that we're entering, whether we talk AI or any other challenge that we need to navigate, young people are the ones that are going to get us there.
Going to do it, right? So I know you have to go. So I would like to briefly dive a little bit more into leadership. So I didn't realize, like when I was incarcerated, prior to being incarcerated, I didn't view myself as a leader. And, I talk to a lot of men who are on the inside and those who are now home. And that was like a similar thought process, like a leader, like I'm not a leader. And it's just like, no, like you are. If you're a husband, if you're a father, if you're a supervisor, inevitably you are a leader. And in order to be an effective leader, leadership is a skill. It's a skill, which means it can be learned, similar to like an art, but it has to be developed. And I've learned to be intentional about becoming a better leader. That's part of my personal growth. What are your thoughts about leadership and the importance of leadership as a man, and then also for the teenagers, and why they should start to develop and hone their leadership skills?
Yeah, I mean, the world moves in the way it does in large part because of leadership and who is the leader or who is identified as the leader. My big thing about leadership, because I'm committed to a life of service and contribution, is more focused on, I guess, the nonprofit sector. Although I do believe this applies in the private sector as well, I believe the command and control style of leadership just isn't effective anymore. And the young people coming up now, that won't work for them. And we have more women, fortunately, in the world as well, and in the workforce and in leadership roles. And that command and control won't work for them either. But certain industries, they still feed that, right? And I recognize that too. But really focused on the social entrepreneur side of leadership, I see a leader in the 21st century needing to be high empathy, high emotional intelligence, high self and other awareness, having a growth mindset, and a deep commitment to relationships. And you can develop those skills and learn those skills and get better at it. The key to all of that for me has been the individual leader's ability to be vulnerable. Because if you're vulnerable, you develop all those skills in a different way. And if you're vulnerable, you have humility, you have compassion, you have a beginner's mind, and you're always trying to learn. If you're always trying to learn, you're always growing or realizing how little you knew before.
Yeah.
And that growth mindset, coupled with a deep caring for people, I believe is the present and future of leadership. If we're going to create a world that works for more people than it currently does. And so I don't believe command and control is the way forward. I believe supporting young people and developing these, again, durable skills or soft skills. And I think that's where Youth Build's focus on positive youth development, where we're focused on character and confidence and contribution and these skills that young people need, but in an environment founded and based in love, so that young people can be vulnerable. And if they're vulnerable, they experience empathy, compassion. They experience the skills that they're actually going to need. So Youth Build is seeking to model the kind of environment that develops leaders. And the last thing I'll say for now about leadership, the most successful organizations and companies are the ones who can grow their leaders the fastest. And with AI increasing the pace of everything, and AI being what it is, and it's going to develop more skills to have more empathy-like ability, but I don't believe it can yet replace the leadership, the human leadership that we're going to continue to need. And we need to do our part to ensure that young people are equipped with the leadership skills to be the leaders that can take us forward.
Awesome. I'm super excited about Youth Build. Can you let the listeners and the viewers know if there are any youths who would like to become a part of Youth Build? What do they have to do? And what ways can the community support Youth Build, whether it's financial, I don't know, how can people who want to support Youth Build, how can they do that? And how can the youth become involved in Youth Build?
Yeah, I mean, the thank you. I appreciate that. And the easiest way would be to check out our website, www.youthbuild.org. And there's maps there where you can use the feature to identify where a Youth Build program is in your community. And we're in 47 states and territories in the United States and 17 other countries outside the U.S. So you can find the Youth Build anywhere. And the number one way young people find us is through word of mouth in the community. And so we're really grateful for anyone who spreads the word that we're here, because we're going to continue to be here and stand firmly with our communities and with our young people. And we're in enough places that we believe we're the kind of ecosystem that can contribute to a larger learning ecosystem in the world and be an anchor institution that people can count on, especially young people. And we'll continue to center their voices and their leadership. And if you believe in that, we count you as a partner already.
All right, so let's support. Any last word, or quote, something that can resonate into the minds of our listeners before we end?
Wow, it's a great question. You know, what comes to mind immediately, so I'll just share it, is, during my 16 years of incarceration, I think one of the keys to my transformation was being able to let go of the attachment to the day of my release and just working every day and every year to be better and stronger than I was the year before so that I can contribute more to the world. And one thing that really kept me going was by Howard Thurman, keep fresh before me my moments of high resolve. And I'm reminded of all I've overcome, but I'm grateful for the life experience that I've had and all I've overcome, because it shaped who I am today and my ability to contribute to others. And I encourage everyone to trust the process, live your life, take one day at a time, one step at a time, and believe that everything's happening exactly as it needs to for the highest good.
Thank you, John. I'm really happy that I met you. Thank you for coming out. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and it's been amazing. I know the listeners have. They're enjoying it too. Thank you, and see you all later.